Hello everybody. So in our last video, we did the HTML and the styling size for expense splitter application. We put some fake data there so we can see how it actually will look like. And now it's time to remove it so we can actually add the functionality that it should be across the board through the app itself. So for that, we need to go back to the index.html. Let me minimize the Explorer so we can see just the code. Perfect. And the first thing that I need to see here, want to do, is I want to make sure that the elements that I will be selecting through JavaScript have that ID already enabled. So person form, it makes sense. I will select the input, so I need to have it an ID. So let's give it an ID of, oops, person input, right? We can have the form, and let's do different ID for his ID. This will be description input, ID, amount, input, and let's select, let's put it paid by select, right? We're keeping the name, the context of the IDs a little with the element so we can know what it is in this particular one. So this is why I'm noticing that I put expense in uppercase. Let me just put it down. I like to have this notation. What else we need to change here? Okay. The option should not be there because we'll be adding those programmatically. People should not be there because we'll be adding that too. But we're keeping the styling already. So whatever we add, we'll take the styling that's already there. And for that, we'll be inserting elements to the select that we already have and to the UL. And let me just make this, oops, there you go. So we can get that, and let's make this unordered list to have an ID. And let's call this will be the people list. And the same ID will have an ID for the other one. Let's remove the list element. But this will be the expense list. Total spend. We will be changing this value across the board. So let's make it 0 by default. And let's have an ID for both of them. And let's call the first one total spend, and the second one let's call split amount, right? And the end will be the list, and let's put this one as the summary list. Cool. Now we have the empty app. I will be adding different elements, so we can do the changes through JavaScript. So before that, we need to, and before we actually use the JavaScript file, we need to reference that in our HTML. The same time that we did with the styling, we need to do that on JavaScript. And usually for JavaScript, that goes to the bottom, just before the body close. So that means exactly here, you want to set a script tag where the source would be our application JavaScript. Right? And that's it. Actually, I don't know why it's red there. I think it's a best practice to close it like this. for the script tag. Perfect. So now we can start using the JavaScript file. So we can see it works. Let's do a simple console log. And let's do hello there. If we refresh the page and we go to inspect the element, on the console side, we should see the hello there. That means the JavaScript got rendered or taken by the HTML. That's exactly what we need. Cool. So we need to start now reference the different elements that we have in our JavaScript. So we need the person form, and it will be a document get element by ID, and here we just put, and the ID that we do for the person form is person form. So we're creating a variable or a constant that is pointing to an element in the DOM, in the document of our website, and this is actually the form itself. Now we need something similar for the person input, and we need something for oops, I don't know what I'm doing here. These two, there will be the people list. And that is, so we select the person form, the person input, and the people list. Cool. And I think we can start with those. And let's start making some changes. So something that I like to do is just have a different way to do. Let's have another variable called people, and it will be an empty array. And let's do a function. And I like the arrow notation for function. So let's do const render will be equal a function that will be doing something, right? And at the end, what we can do is just call render, and that will call this function that we have through here. So we are making that every time that it's selected, we need to render the different elements that need to change in their DOM, in their document for our site. So whenever I ask render, one of the things that I need to do, I need to clean up my people list. So we already have, I didn't select the people list, right? Oh yes, I did. So sorry, my people list need to select my inner HTML equal to nothing, like pretty much remove everything for the list. And now that I have that, what I need to do is for every person, for every people, for each, so we'll select each one, and it will be for every person here. It will be doing something, right? So it will iterate for every element of the array. The squarely brackets in JavaScript is an array, so we'll be iterate for every element for each element of people, and we'll store the value that people in the person variable in this particular case. So for here we need to create a list element. Will be a document dot create element. We're telling we will create a list element, and then that list will have a text content, and that text content will be the name of the person. And then we will tell that to our people list we need to attach that list element. Remember that the people list is a unordered list. So we'll be adding Watachi inside different list element that we just created here. So we created an empty element. We added the context, the content as a person name, because this will be an array of person. And then we can just people dot append people list dot append child. We will be adding our list. And whenever we get out, this list will get destroyed. So we need to do like reutilize it or change it because you're doing what it's supposed to be. So if we refresh the page, everything is there. Let's say that we can add here John and then add Carlos. Those get added automatically because we created to here. So whenever we add a tier one, let's call, I don't know, Maria. Maria is there too. Right. So we can see that it's actually working the way it's supposed to. So our people element list, it gets full with the people constant, because there is pretty much an array of names. Later we'll change that the form itself will add people to this array. But for now, we can see that the JavaScript is working. We have a render function, that one. Now, there is a second place that we need to be calling. So we already have it here. We need to add it to the dropdown. So let's actually do that. And it's going to be really similar. Whenever we do that people element, we need to do const option, and we need to create element. And that element will be an option. And we know that every select need to have option as a child. Here we need just to add the option.value. Will be my person. And the option dot text content will be person too. Cool. And then we can do to the, we should be able to const paid by select equal document.get element by id, and we call that the same name, paid by select. It's really important how you name your variables or your constants. And as you can see here, actually, I don't know why I have this create reactor. Cool. As you can see through here, it's really simple to understand what is happening. Oh, document create element, sorry. There you go. And so whenever you're reading your source code, you have an idea what you're actually doing and what are you actually selecting. So here we can simply say that my paid by select element dot append child, I will add my option object that I just created. So John, Carlos, Maria are there. If I remove Maria and Carlos, just John is on the list. So yeah, this is actually working pretty good, right? So now let me just remove John, because I know that the render function is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? Now, in order to add more people, let's actually start handling the submit element for my form that we have right here. And this is not Pedro's input. You need to be really careful. Person input. About typos. As you can see, I have a bunch of them. Oh, oops. What I'm doing here. Okay. Copy that, paste it here, and paste it here. Cool. So my render will be at the end. So what I will be doing now, to that particular person form, I will add a event listener. event listener will be if something happened with the form in one particular one. There's different elements that you can go through the documentation of the HTML that you can do. But whenever you have a button inside a form, and it's only one button, usually that button have the submit event. So we can say to the JavaScript, hey, be careful and be listening whenever something happens. And here we're saying whenever a submit happens, I need you to pay attention because you will get an event. And you will do something about that event, right? So when the event submit happens, I need you to do this. First, event.prevent default. By default, when you submit a form, it refreshes the pages. When you're having an application that is just JavaScript and it's a single page application, I will explain that later a little bit better. We don't need to refresh the page itself because we need to use the interactivity to do the changes that we require. So we prevent the default behavior. The default behavior refresh the page or post the page. So we're keeping as it is. And that's pretty much what we're saying here, like, hey, prevent default. I don't want you to refresh. Now that I have that, I need just to get the name of the person that is here and add it to my people array. And after I add it to my people array, I need to render everything. So I will do in the logic, and at the end of the logic, I will do, you know what? Render the page again. I need to just do it. And that's the reason that I have it right here in the function, because I will call the render function several times. So by default, when it gets loaded here, it gets executed, but then whenever this happens, the submit happens, it will get executed because there's a new person in the people array. So it needs to be printed somehow in the HTML or the DOM document. It's a little difficult to see right now, but you will understand in a little bit what I'm trying to say here. So the first thing is const name will be my person input dot value. So I'm saying here that my name constant will be the value of my person input. That's why we needed to select it. But sometimes when you can add like extra spaces at the beginning and at the end. So we can actually trim it right here and remove the leading and trailing white spaces. You can see there is a function of the strings in JavaScript by default. So let's just trim it. And then we can do some kind of validation. If there is no name, I want you to return. Don't do anything, just get back, like get out from the function. If there is a name, I need you to proceed doing something, right? So this is called early exit. So everything that is after this, if this is correct in the if statement, if this is a true, there's not a name, just return it. If there is a name, it will skip this and will do the rest. So whenever this is not satisfied, but doing like this is called early exit, and it's just a better validation that we have. So we can just add people, push the name, we added there, and then we can do the people input. After we add it, we need to change the value to empty, and then we need to call the render function, right? So that means if I just do here John and click add person, it got added here, it got deleted to here, what I needed. If I put Carlos, enter, it does the submit also. Carlos get added and it's in my list too, right? Pretty cool, right? Actually, I don't know why John is twice. That's actually weird. Ooh. There is something happening the way everybody's handled here. Oh, I know what is happening. Let me do John, Carlos, and let's do Maria. So you will see John, John Carlos, Maria. Whenever we render, the list of people, it get deleted, but the option, it doesn't get resetted. So we just appending elements over and over and over. That's why the list is actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In this case, we just need to tell, like my pay by select, inner HTML, like everything that is inside, to be empty. That means that we can just do John and Carlos, and just one time each time. It could get deleted and be added by the render function itself. Right? Pretty cool. So now let's work with the expenses itself, and that will be interesting. So we need to select the expenses form. So let's call that one through here. Cons expense form equal, copy this, and then we need just to copy over, we need to select the desk input, amount input, and pay by select. Right? Pay by select, we already have it. That means that we just need these two, and we need the expense list. Cool. Let me copy those. Let me paste those here and do cons desk input, cool. Actually expense for back off before. Let's try to keep a little organized the input here. Amount input will be equal to select the amount input element. Then we have the pay select, and by the end we have the expense list. We're pretty much selecting that particular element. Cool. So our render function will be actually doing that too for the expenses. So we need to have another expenses equal an array, and this will be a particular array. And let's put the first one here. This will be an array of object. Let's do here John and Carlos. Well, we have those there, and we can do something like, in this object or the array of objects, I want to have different elements. I want to have my description, and I'm adding one manually, but this will be added through the form itself. Let's put this one as horas, right? And then we have the amount, and let's call this 10, and we'll have the pay by, and we have before as Carlos. And let me keep this as, you can use single quotes or double quotes. It's the same for JavaScript now, but let's keep it consistent. So we can have that. So we have one element, one object inside the array, and this is a JSON object or a JavaScript object that we can utilize. And that object have three different keys: description, amount, and pay by. And those are the ones that we're going to be using through the elements, or the way that we're going to creating the expenses size, right? So in the list, pretty much after we go for every person, we need to do something very similar with expenses. The first thing is we go to the expense list, inner HTML to be empty, like clean slate, and that for every expense that we have, we need to do something about that expense. And let's put expense in singular. That means that we will create a list element. That list element will be an empty li create element li list. Cool. And then we can change the text of that particular one. And we can do the or object or list object text content will be, and let's do this backlit, so we can do a text formatting here. So in JavaScript, when you use backlit, you can use variables to be inserted with this particular order. And we can do something like pull my expense description, space, dash, and then you will put my expense that amount, but I need this to be fixed in 2 decimals. So, and then we have space, pay by, and let's do another one, and we do expense dot pay by, right? So our list element have all those sections there. And of course, we need to go to expense list, append child, that particular list. Cool. If I save it, there you go. We have the expense that we have here manually entered. Probably we need to add the $sign here. That means that here before the form, we can just add an extra $sign, and that will be printed. There you go. So Sodas will be paid by Carlos. Pretty neat, right? I will keep that element there because I want to test the calculation of the total spend and the split per person before we actually move forward to that. Now, we can continue adding from the render, but probably we'll better to extract that functionality. So let's do render summary. Will be another function. Will be executed right here. Whenever you call render, render will call render summary. And render summary will be a function that doesn't take any element and will be do something. It was extracting that section itself. The first thing we need to call summary list. Let's see what elements are missing here. We need to get the total spend, we need the split amount, and we need to get the summary list. Right? So those 3 elements that are missing here. And let's put it right here. So for, there's a way that I remember to, there you go. We can do something const. Those elements, it will be equal document dot get element by ID. I will be selecting that particular element. What I did is just the multi-cursor section for JavaScript, for Visual Studio Code, sorry. And I was able I know that I need to write the same thing over and over. So you handle that in one line, but you can do it by line if you need to. So it's just a different function that you can use. So we have the summary list, and we have a total spend and split amount. That means my their summary, the first thing that I need to do is my summary list in HTML to be empty. Like we need to clean it every time, right? The other thing will be if people length is 0, if I don't have anybody there, and that will be pretty much the first time that we execute this. Total spent, text content equal to 0, and something similar with the split. Amount text content equals 0, and we just need to return. Right? We're telling that the content for this will be 0 when there's no people there. But when there is people, and the return what it does is just get exits through here. We need to calculate those. And it will be a little weird because it's not actually calculating the number %. It will be something different. So let's do const total equal my expense. I need to go to each expense and add it to my total. So I can do different elements. I can do a let here, let total equals 0, and then can do expense dot for each, for every expense that I have, I can do my total plus equal expense dot amount, right? And that should work. Like that will one way to do it. Another way to simplify it, and I like it's a little more complex sometimes, but I actually like it. Is use the reduce function for other ways. So we can do expenses reduce. What I'm saying is taking a copy and reduce to something. I'm saying pretty much the sum and the expense. And what we're doing is for every sum, we'll be adding the expense dot amount. And you will start with 0. So those two lines can be changed to 1, something like this. Right? Both are actually correct. Both does pretty much the same thing. And let's go another called share equal. Now that we have total, we just need to divide it by people length. Right? That will be as simple as that. And now that we have that, we can actually do something like this, but a little bit better. We can use a backlit here, and we can do the $, and then the variable that we'll be sending, and we can do total dot to fix it to, and this content, text content, will be share to fix. If I save that, we can see that we just have one expense, $10, and you divide that by 2, it's 5. So we can say our total is actually working the way it's supposed to be. Cool. And now I need to do, for the summary, we need to know for every person how much is owed and how much it should get, right? Those are the elements that we need to handle here. So we need to go through the list of every person and verify that. And I think that's perfect here in the render summary to handle that particular element. So after we did that, we need to do for every people for each. And it will be every person. And now we need to get how much that person paid for. And that's, and I like a lot this for JavaScript. So we have the expense one. So we need to get only the expenses for that particular person. So to get just the expenses for that particular person, that means that we need to filter it. So if I do my expenses dot filter. I can do my expense. Only if my expense paid by is equal to my person. That means that we'll get just a super array where that be that person payments across the board. That's it. Now that I have that, I need just to reduce those and add it. And we have the formula for reduce that we used before right here. So we can actually just copy this and paste it. Let's change this to EXP just to have the same naming convention. Right? So we filter and then reduce it to get just the sum amount and how much that person paid. And we need to store it somewhere. So the const paid equal that. That way we know how much that person paid across the board. Right? Now that we have that, we need to the balance. Const balance will be paid minus the share, like how much money should pay. And here we can get an if element. If this is over 0, that person gets money. If it's less than 0, that person owes money, right? That will be pretty much. So in this case, John paid 0 minus 5, he owes $5. Carlos paid 10 minus 5, he gets $5. That will be the idea here in the logic. So the constant balance is paid minus the share. Then we just need to create our list element again. Document, create element, list. I feel sometimes that I don't know how to type. Sorry, guys. And then we change our text content. Will be, and we can do a tertiary if statement here. So you can do equal, and with as simple as this. If my balance is bigger or equal to 0, something happened. If not, something else. So let's do a backlit, and we can do something as person, person get $, and then the variable for the backlit, and for balance that to fix 2. Let's keep it simple. Cool. Else will be really similar. But will be out. And here will be a negative value. So we need to remove that with math absolute formula. That means it converts a negative value to a positive one. And you get there. Cool. And what happened every time that we created the list element? We need to append it. That means that our summary list dot append child will be the list element. Cool. If we add a third person, you will see all the quantity change. Let's add Maria to the mix. John owes 333, Carlos gets 667, and Maria owes 333. A little bit how that actually works, right? Cool. So let me remove now my expenses. I will remove the expenses for now. There is no expenses to change. So my total is 0 and everybody gets 0, right? There is no expenses to share through here. And the last thing that I want to do, I want to add another event listener to my actually expense form. So we have my expense form, add event listener, and that will be the submit. You have the event. And for this will be really simple. We need to do the first thing, prevent default, of course, so it doesn't re-render the page. And then we need to extract the values. Description will be my equal description input dot value dot trim, right? And you need to type const correctly. Cool. Const amount equal amount input dot value. But this is actually a text. The way that JavaScript handled every input is a text by default, even that we selected as a number there. So we can grab this out, and just to be safe, let's parse it as a float, and that's it. So we push it to be actual number, and const pay by will be equal to pay by select dot value, right? That will be the one that we have through here. Okay, now that we have that, we need to verify those actually exist. So it will be if there is not description, or there is no amount, or there is not pay by, that we are enforcing that the three of them should be there. If nothing that happens, just return, get out. As simple as that. But if those exist, we need to push it. So expense list dot push, and we'll be creating here the object that we have. So we call our description, or amount, and our pay by. And you know that JavaScript, whenever you push the variable name alone, that means that the key have the same name as the variable name. That's why we don't need to do something like description, right? This is redundant in JavaScript, modern JavaScript. So after we have the expenses list now, we need to have our input dot value to be deleted, and our amount input dot value deleted. And whenever we finish everything, we need to render our application. So whenever the event happens, we need to re-render the app. So we save it, and let's test that. Let's do now cake, and it cost $20, and it was by John. Add expense. Ooh, something happened here. Let's see. It didn't work. Let's see. Something is having wrong. It's not working. So go to the console. No. Amount is not defined. But I see a typo here. This one is not the same as this one. Yep. If I save this, let's do again. Cake, $20 by John. Didn't like it now. Spec console. Expense list. Oh, is I need to push it to expenses. That's the name of the variable. Expense list is the element of the doc. Expenses to be pushed. Okay, one more time. Cake 20 by John. There you go. And now we can see there that John gets 13, Carlos 06, and Maria 06. Let's add another name. Rodolfo, let me add myself. And we can see that it's actually working. So the last thing, to make it the way that it is, let's remove the name of the people and keep it so we can just do the same. Carlos, John, and let's do Sores 10 by Carlos. Yeah, and that looks similar. We just Carlos and John name place, but that's the way that we had it in our draw board. Who wanted to have the application itself. So everything is done. Pretty neat, right? So one last thing, in order to make this work the way that we want to, we need to deploy the application. Well, we need to save it in Git and to deploy. So let's do git create, git init, sorry, git add everything, git commit, message, the finish expenses splitter. Right, we should probably be by elements be adding this. I didn't want to show that right now. I just wanted to keep it at the end. 3 ones added there, so we can see that got there, but you can actually do it through here too. So let's just publish the brand, and let's call that one, I will call this expense splitter. And will be public. If you don't have, in this case, we want to see my path to allow it. I was allow. And there you go. Successful publish the page itself. So now the repository should be out there. So let's do GitHub. That's a really long list. github.com. And let's maximize this. Let's see my R Roman B. Here we can go to repositories, and expense splitter is right there. Cool. So for submit, I want you to see the application submitted with a specific change. I need you to have different colors. You select whatever colors you need, and I need you to change the name to something different than expense splitter, to whatever you need. So I will need the URL of your GitHub project. Of course, need to be public so I can actually see it. With a different name and different colors, I will test those. But also, I would like to have your application deployed. So by this, you should have already access to Cloudflare. You already created your application there. You have your account, sorry. So I would like to deploy it to Cloudflare. So, and here we're going to be using a tool called Wrangler. So you will do npm install -g, and you will be installing something called Wrangler. Wrangler is the utility that Cloudflare uses to interact with your terminal or with your computer. So you can go and select the site through Cloudflare URL dashboard, that works. But you can deploy it through here, and it's actually pretty cool. And I'll show you how to do it. So you need to install this and go to a process. After I already have it, so I will not do it. After you have that, you need to do Wrangler login. That will open a Cloudflare page. You give the different permissions that you require. And when you see that your Cloudflare workers have granted authorization, you can go back and deploy. And something pretty cool, you can do Wrangler pages deploy. As simple as that. If we click enter, oh, I need to specify the directory. So I put a dot because that's the current directory. And look the magic through here. We need to add a name. I will call expenses -html. The production branch will be main. I'm okay with that. It will upload, it will load the 3 files, it will start deploying. And it have a URL. You select that URL. Sometimes, I don't know, this is actually weird for me. When I deploy a page like this, it gives this pre-name before. If you remove it, it actually works. So there's my expense splitter. Let's do Carlos. Nice. John. Sodas. Then by Carlos. And it worked. And the application is already deployed. So this is the second part that you need to give me. So you need to give me your GitHub with the changes I requested, that is new name, new colors, and the deploy application. Oops, this one, through here. And that's it. I hope that you like it. Remember to keep the names the way they're supposed to be. Be careful with those typos. I have a lot of issues with typos, so I know actually where to look at. It's one of the first things that I verify about what I do. Just be careful with the typos here and there. And I hope that you like the video. I hope that you like the project. And if you have any question, leave a comment, send me a message, and I will be gladly able to help you in any part. Meanwhile, happy coding, everybody.